old Avatar, and my era's not over yet!
Hey, welcome back ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy. So lately I've been thinking about the two Avatar series, The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra. Now both I think are great series in their own right, but I'd like to talk about one episode of each series that shows why Avatar was this.
Sometimes life is like this dark tunnel. You can't always see the light at the end of the tunnel, but if you just keep moving, you will come to a better place.
And Korra was this.
I'm the Avatar! You gotta deal with it!
So first, let's take a look at the many similarities between these shows. Both series were created by the team of Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Konietzko for Nickelodeon. Now obviously, both follow the titular Avatar, a being with the ability to control all four elements.
Water, earth, fire, air.
The original series follows the peaceful airbending avatar Aang, and the sequel covers the journey of the tough waterbending avatar Korra. Both series have a well-loved supporting cast, including a snarky older brother, an idealistic younger sibling, and a badass with family issues. In each season, the protagonist must undergo trials to learn new skills, whether that be bending a new element or connecting with the spirit world. They are both mentored by someone connected to the avatar cycle, and eventually end up teaming up with a former baddie to take down a bigger threat. Aang and Korra both find love, or in Korra's case, find love, lose love, find love, lose love, rinse, repeat. And they both gather allies in their fights against the forces of darkness.
Yeah, but both are great.
Yes, while Korra is definitely more contentious, that series has its own great moments, which is why I want to compare Avatar to one of the best episodes of Korra. It's only fair. Now, there are a fair amount of mediocre to just plain bad Korra episodes, especially in the second season. But because that season was mired in production difficulties, I don't think it's fair to compare it to an episode of the original series that didn't struggle with similar problems. Instead, I'd like to compare Korra's well-liked Season 3 finale, Venom of the Red Lotus, to Avatar's Season 2 finale, The Crossroads of Destiny. Both of these episodes take place at roughly the same point in the entire continuity of the series, but more importantly, both take place at the same point in the hero's journey. So the hero's journey is a template coined by Joseph Campbell in his book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, and it's a way of analyzing the common plot structure of a protagonist who goes on an adventure, triumphs over evil, and then returns changed. This hero travels through stages like the call to adventure and crossing the first threshold. These two episodes happen at the stage known as the ordeal, or the descent into darkness for their respective protagonists. And these episodes set both Korra and Aang up for their final season where they must recover from their defeat. In Avatar, this episode takes place at the end of the Ba Sing Se arc.
There's no war in Ba Sing Se.
The hero's plans are going well as Aang has finally been reunited with Appa and the Earth King is listening to the news of the war. However, at the same time, Azula's coup is taking shape as she works to take over the city from the inside. In the season finale, Azula seizes control of the city, Zuko betrays his uncle, and Aang and his friends lose the duel against the Fire Nation siblings, barely escaping with their lives. Korra's Season 3 finale resolves the Red Lotus plotline, where a group of anarchists led by the airbender Zahir attack Korra and her friends. The Red Lotus members feel the existence of the Avatar upsets the balance of the world, and therefore Korra must die for the world to be truly free. Zahir captures Korra and infuses her body with poison. This is to force her to enter the Avatar state so she can be killed, ending the Avatar cycle. Korra and Zahir have a fierce duel. Then, thanks to the assistance of air nomads, Zahir is defeated and Korra is saved from the poison, although it leaves her with lasting physical and psychological damage. Both finales feature a contrast between hope and despair. In Avatar, the hope comes from Aang's recovery from Azula's attack, but the despair comes from the state of the world.
The Earth Kingdom has fallen.
In Korra, the situation in the world is hopeful, with the air nomads having returned and Janora's mastery ceremony. However, the character herself has never been in a worse state. Venom of the Red Lotus is one of the strongest episodes of Korra because it highlights everything about the series that works. While Avatar spent more time fleshing out Aang's supporting cast, Korra spends more time developing the internal workings of Korra herself. Since the series was aimed at teenagers instead of preteens, they chose to focus on darker topics like mental health struggles, including Korra's PTSD, which is introduced in this episode. But these darker themes actually hurt the production of the series since Nickelodeon didn't feel that it fit with their brand. Nick first moved the show to a worse time slot, the infamous Friday night death slot, and then to an online-only release for the latter half of Season 3 and all of Season 4, citing declining ratings. Now, while this meant the series got worse views, it also gave the creators more control over the series. Seasons 1 and 2 of Korra struggled to find their voice because its creators never knew if they were getting another season. Both seasons are forced to have finales that could be the finale of the entire show instead of, setting up longer arcs. I think this is what led to storylines like Korra suddenly getting her powers back in the Season 1 finale, which actually could have been another season-long arc. On the other hand, DiMartino and Konietzko knew exactly how many seasons and episodes Nickelodeon was giving them at the start of the original series. Planning out a 3-season arc is simpler when you know from the beginning that you have 3 seasons. Aang has a natural goal each season, to master a new element. Korra is essentially a fully realized avatar by the end of Season 1. Legend of Korra was originally supposed to be a mini-series, and as a result, Season 2 struggled to find a believable conflict for her. It also had to reinvent character dynamics for a longer-running series. Mako and Korra's relationship arc had concluded by the end of Season 1. But then, in Season 2, their relationship was thrown into annoying turmoil to keep it interesting.
Was it a bad fight?
No, it wasn't that bad.
It didn't help that the love triangle, which was widely disliked by fans, made its dramatic return in Season 2.
Mako, I missed you so much.
But Korra found its footing again in Season 3. Seasons 3 and 4 focus on Korra's internal conflicts and depowering her, rather than finding consistently believable threats for a super being. It also ditched the love triangle in favor of developing the characters' internal lives. They also make Korra face the legacy of the Avatar, showing the series' true struggle to find its identity outside of The Last Airbender. Season 3 was the first time the creators knew for sure they were going to get a follow-up season, so they were able to fully embrace the show's darker tone and end the finale on a very depressing but moving note. Korra's villains are also polarizing for people who love or hate the show. Korra has some good villains.
They say the Avatar has failed humanity. That is why the spirits have chosen me.
And some bad villains.
Brother, I'm too strong for you.
You're no brother of mine. You betrayed me.
Yes, I did.
But Season 3 Zahir is the fan favorite. Zahir has considerable screen time devoted to his philosophy and motivation. His character is particularly unnerving because of his calm disposition. Compared to Ozai's fire-spitting rage in Avatar, Zahir is a more complex villain. He personally holds no ill will towards Korra herself, but he believes her death is necessary to bring about a better world. Now, we would never say Ozai is a bad villain, since he is crucial in the original series, but Korra's villains serve a different purpose aside from representing pure evil. Ozai is more of a symbol of the all-consuming evil of war and genocide, but Korra's villains highlight different aspects of her character. Zahir, in particular, pushes Korra further than she's ever been pushed, and makes her confront her status and legacy as the Avatar. He makes her fight not only for her life, but for the Avatar to continue as a concept. In some ways, Korra shares Zahir's disdain for the difficult world leaders she's had to confront, like the Earth Queen or President Reiko. She favors destruction more than Aang ever did, and Zahir is all about the destruction of the current world order. He even approves of her decision to open the spirit portals in Season 2, a decision that causes worldwide backlash throughout Season 3. But Zahir's violence shows Korra that this destructive philosophy can be pushed too far.
I don't believe in queens.
Korra repeatedly learns that her tendency towards violence can cause more harm than good. In Season 1, she faces an image of herself as an oppressor to non-benders. And in Season 3, she sees that her worst impulses could turn her into someone like Zahir. Also, as a master airbender, Zahir parallels Aang, although obviously not in every way.
Violence wasn't the answer.
It never is.
Zahir's arc this season involves giving up emotion to unlock his true power after the death of his girlfriend. Aang goes through a similar arc in unlocking the Avatar state. By confronting a nimble, level-headed airbender, Korra is confronting her legacy as a sequel protagonist to one of the most beloved TV shows of all time. The Red Lotus also echoes the White Lotus. The creators are intentionally calling back to an aspect of the original series that people loved, and then they're twisting it beyond recognition. I admire how Korra's creators committed to being different from The Last Airbender. Instead of feudal fantasy, they drastically changed the setting to a big city in the midst of an industrial revolution. They created a protagonist who is the polar opposite of Aang. Korra never fell into the sequel trap of simply repeating what already worked.
Chewie, we're home.
Now, like we said, unlike Avatar, Korra's narrative struggled because the network never fully committed to the show. Or why not? Well, according to animation director Yoo Jae-myung, part of the reason was because the network never liked that the series had a female protagonist.
닐리디언에서 그게 주인공이 여자라는 이유로 방송을 이제 그 제작을 할까 말까 하신 것에 대한 굉장히 이제 그 캐릭터 주인공이 여자라는 그 이유만으로 조금 방송, 그러니까 좀 제작 자체가 좀 중단됐었던 그런 일이.
Aang and Korra are both protagonists who reflect values opposed to their traditional gender roles. Aang is a pacifist who loves deeply.
What are you waiting for? Take him out!
I can't.
While Korra is a bruiser who would rather finish a fight with her fists than her words.
You're the only ones who are gonna need a hospital. And for your sake, I hope there's one nearby.
Both characters are deeper than those initial impressions, but on the surface, they are complete opposites. Korra committed to changing almost everything that fans loved about the original series, and this helped to give the series its own voice. But Korra's bold strokes didn't always work. Avatar is overall a much more solid television show than Korra, but Korra's off-screen problems are what kept the show from reaching its potential. Like, we would rather rewatch The Great Divide any day instead of rewatching most of Korra Season 2.
Look! It's the Great Divide! The biggest canyon in the Earth Kingdom!
Let's keep flying!
Venom of the Red Lotus is one of the best episodes of Korra, but it still suffers from some of the series' larger problems. For one thing, the supporting cast of Korra was a weaker element of this series. Now, while I like Bolin, Mako, and especially Asami, they felt extraneous to Korra's story, whereas Katara, Sokka, and Toph were essential to the story of Aang growing up and realizing his full potential. The ultimate message of Avatar is that Aang needs his friends to succeed, but for the majority of Korra, it seems like the writers are scrambling to find something for her Avatar gang to do. The weaker cast nadir was this episode, where Bolin, Mako, and Asami were relegated to fighting lesser threats while Korra takes on the big bad. She barely interacts with her friends in this episode, making their battle feel like an unnecessary side quest. It doesn't help that the lesser villains, like the scary water lady and the lava guy, have barely any character traits. And by the way, if you remember their names without looking them up, I don't believe you.
Are you saying I'm a liar?
Mako straight up kills Minghua, and it's never touched on again because in the grand scheme of this show, she doesn't really matter. Asami doesn't even get a highlighted battle, instead facing the anonymous Red Lotus soldiers for less than 10 on-screen seconds. Actually, Azula's voice actress, veteran performer Grey Delisle, also makes an appearance in Korra as Minghua. Now, when you compare those two villains, Azula blows Minghua out of the water.
Don't flatter yourself. You were never even a player.
Part of the problem is that there are simply too many supporting characters in Korra. Each season added more and more to Korra's supporting cast. We not only have Team Avatar, which consists of Bolin, Mako, Asami, and sometimes Tenzin, but we also have Lin, Suyin, Korra's dad, Jinora, and the rest of Tenzin's family, and Kai. When everyone shows up in a big clump towards the end of the episode, it leaves no time for any meaningful moments with the individual supporting cast. On the other hand, the Crossroads of Destiny is when Avatar's supporting cast shines. It features some of the best moments in the show, from both supporting heroes and villains. Zuko and Katara bond in the caverns under Ba Sing Se. Iroh and Aang get to have a heart-to-heart, and Azula and Long Feng's confrontation is one for the history books.
But I know, and you know.
Instead of waiting until the end of the finale to reunite the characters, Avatar tosses them together in interesting combinations throughout its episode's runtime. While Korra's supporting cast barely ever interacts with Season 3's secondary villains, Zuko and Azula's interactions with the rest of the cast are some of the finale's best moments. The fights in each episode also highlight what makes each protagonist work. Aang focuses on avoiding combat when he can, but in his battle he works with Katara, reminding us of her fighting prowess and demonstrating how Aang needs help from his friends.
The power of friendship is so amazing!
On the other hand, Korra's battle with Zahir is a brutal one-on-one fight. It's more reminiscent of Aang's final battle with Ozai, where we really see the protagonist take a serious beating before striking back with all possible force. Now, as the poison slowly kills Korra, she attacks Zahir with everything she's got, and shocks even the Red Lotus with her power. Whereas Aang asks himself,
What if I'm not powerful enough?
And the fight demonstrates that Aang is not powerful enough. We are seeing an Avatar who has yet to come into his full power, and so he loses to both Azula and the Dai Li. Aang is forced to sacrifice his emotions for Katara mid-battle in order to finally enter the Avatar state. And even then, it's too late. The Avatar state, instead of powering him up, leaves him vulnerable. Korra, on the other hand, doesn't need the Avatar state to be a powerhouse. She counters Aang's arc by resisting full Avatar mode to avoid becoming vulnerable to Zahir. Both characters are eventually forced into the Avatar state through their circumstances, and they both almost die. Katara fighting Azula is also not a one-off fight, as opposed to the duels by Mako and Bolin. In this duel of masters, both are important characters with their own emotional arcs. It also foreshadows their showdown in the series finale. Katara even uses some similar movements here, like trapping Azula's limbs in water, the same way she will trap her entire body in their final fight. Now, I can't talk about the Crossroads of Destiny without mentioning Zuko, because it is his crossroads that the title refers to. Throughout Season 2, Zuko is continuously confronted by the two warring sides of his nature. He wants to please his father, regain his honor, and take his crown back. On the other hand, his peaceful inner nature wants to live happily with his uncle and forget about the Avatar. He feels both pride in his birthright and shame in his actions. Part of the reason this episode works so well is that this is the moment when Zuko makes the wrong choice. In a moment of weakness, he betrays his uncle in favor of just a chance to return to his old life. The Legend of Korra does not have an equivalent supporting character. Korra's own arc in Season 4 most closely parallels Zuko, as she too must grapple with her role in the world against her personal wants and needs. This is reflected by the title of the episode, Zuko Alone and Korra Alone. But while Korra only gives this level of depth to its main character, one of Avatar's antagonists went through so much character growth that he becomes one of the series' most beloved cast members. The problem with Korra's villain of the season antagonists is that they never have the screen time that's required to establish long-term character arcs like Zuko and Azula. The final moment of each conflict also highlights the supporting characters of both shows, in both positive and negative ways. In the final moments of the duel with Azula, after Aang has been shot full of lightning and all hope seems lost, Iroh takes Team Avatar's side to stand against his niece and nephew, whereas in Korra, they just use the supporting characters to cut tension.
Oh! Whoa! You see what I did there? I put a sock in it.
After they worked so hard to build up this conflict, this gag immediately de-escalates the tension. It also seems like an odd lead into the following scene where we see Korra in the depths of her depression after the battle. In both episodes, the gang is aware of the evil plan, but they fail to stop it. The Earth Kingdom falls. Korra loses her powers and her confidence. The Avatar cycle may not have ended as Zahir wanted, but Korra is certainly not as strong as she was. He has broken something within her, and it's going to require a season-long arc for her to recover. Similarly, the fall of the Earth Kingdom sets up for the desperate last stand against the Fire Nation that is Book 3 of the original series. These two episodes both end on a dour note for their protagonists. Aang's crew flies away from the fallen nation, while Korra cries, trapped in her own misery, and on Janora's day of happiness, no less. These somber moments that the episodes leave us with are the best possible way to pave the path for the final seasons of both shows. Korra's darker tone and willingness to make bold decisions shine in this episode, but it also displays the show's larger problems of managing its supporting cast of both heroes and villains. The original series expertly shows off its supporting characters at the expense of not focusing as much on Aang's internal arc. However, both episodes achieved what they set out to do in their season finales, but the larger problems that worked for Korra still cast a shadow over its best episodes. Big shout out to Harriet Lengel-Enright, the writer of this episode. You can find our socials below and let us know what you think about all this down in the comments or at me on Twitter or in our free to join Discord server. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.